A new global 15% minimum tax. What's this madness all about? 15% global tax. A lot of stuff going on right now. Let's get into it.
Come meet me by the river, under the willow tree. I love you, gold and silver. Come sit a while with me here in the twilight.
According to the OECD, 136 nations have all approved a new global agreement on corporate taxation. Sounds wonderful. A group of 136 countries have agreed to a global treaty that would tax large multinationals at a minimum rate of 15% and require companies to pay taxes in the countries where they do business. Sounds wonderful on the surface. You know, need to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, build back better. Let's get into it. It is now supported by all nations in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development and the G20. The countries that sign on to this international treaty represent more than 90%, ladies and gentlemen, 90% of the global GDP. So the OECD said that the minimum rate would see countries collect around 150 billion in new revenues annually, while taxing rights on more than 125 billion of profit would be shifted to countries where big multinationals earn their income. Interesting. Let's look behind the curtain. Looking into the data. Bottom line, it's not that simple, ladies and gentlemen. While the OECD has triumphant, the agreement has a major victory. Civil society groups have slammed the deal for pandering to tax havens at the expense of poor nations. Those tax havens are going to go up according to the other side. So, right now, even in the midst of all the craziness that is going on out there, globalism continues to march forward in a lot of people's view. Now that the world has come together on this, what other types of global tax agreements could they come up with in the future? So, on this side of the pond, of course, most Americans will never hear about this new global agreement on taxation. Like every other bill that's pushed through on a Friday night, we got football, baseball going. It will never become a major political issue in this country. Kickbacks, maybe. This is by design because the globalists prefer to move their agenda forward without much public debate, if possible, some people say. Our world is being transformed at a pace that is breathtaking, and the road ahead is filled with peril, possibly. It's been an interesting 2 years, just looking at both sides of this. I read into this bill. If fully implemented, large U.S. companies would pay less to U.S. government and move to overseas governments. So, right? While the foreign earnings of companies would face higher taxes on the surface. So, here's the bottom line, folks. Christian Hallman, he's a tax policy lead at OXFAM. He says the basic incentive for shifting profits has not erased by the 15% floor of corporate income tax. He says it hasn't been erased. Alex Klein, a chief executive of the Tax Justice Network, they're an advocacy group, has described discussion and agreement on the OECD's global corporate tax minimum as historic, but one that fails to deliver fair and effective reform. There's still a lot of profit shifting going on, folks. It looks good on the surface, according to him. He has warned the deal in prospect would shockingly give the lion's share of revenue to the largest OECD members at a time when lower income countries already lose the greatest share of tax revenue to corporate tax abuse. The big boys are still getting the money. So after Ireland told the FT, the Financial Times, yesterday that it has signed on to the OECD tax plan by agreeing to raise its hardline minimum corporate tax to 15% from 12.5%, they got strong-armed, on the condition that smaller domestic companies are allowed to keep the lower rates. Hungary and Estonia, the two remaining EU holdouts, apparently also decided to join the deal. Wonder what happened. You know? Ooh. So while the EU united, the OECD decided to announce Friday, because they're pumped. They're pumped. The 136 out of 400 members have agreed to the new deal. Only 4 holdouts. Still, the 4 OECD members are Kenya, Nigeria, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka haven't signed on to the program. But 136 members out of the 140 still gives the OECD an overwhelming majority, making the new tax framework a slam dunk in their opinion. Though, keep in mind, for these changes to take effect, many legislators, including the U.S. Congress, will need to agree on it. See how much money is exchanged. So there's 2 pillars to this. The so-called 2 pillars solution relies on the U.S. allowing foreign governments to take a bigger piece of the multinational tax pie generated by American largest companies. Taxes in America go abroad. Doesn't help America. Opening American tech giants to pay taxes in jurisdictions where they operate but aren't necessarily based. Okay, that sounds sort of good. I think to get a broader perspective of this, how does profit shifting work? What is profit shifting? Profit shifting is a practice used by some multinational companies to pay less tax than they should. So keep that in mind. Corporations do this by moving the profit they make in major markets such as the UK, for example, London, where they manufacture products or sell goods or services into low tax countries like Ireland. Think Google. Hop those to Google, don't pay any tax in jurisdictions like the Caribbean, Bermuda. This profit is then taxed at a very low rate or possibly not at all, depending on the rate of corporate tax in that county or jurisdiction. So let's look at phase 2. So you got phase 1 and phase 2 from the OECD's press release. So on their press release, under Pillar 1, taxing rights of more than USDA $125 billion of profit are expected to be reallocated to market jurisdictions each year. So developing country revenue gains are expected to be greater than those in more advanced economies, as a, of the, kind of proportion of the existing revenues. So the Pillar 2 introduces a global minimum corporate tax. This is the one. Rate set at 15%. So the new minimum tax rate will apply to companies with revenue above $750 million and is estimated to generate around USDA $150 billion, nice round number, in additional global tax revenues annually. So further benefits will also arise from the stabilization of the international tax system and the increased tax certainty for taxpayers and tax administrations. So, build back better. A few at the top, maybe get more of the money. That's what some people are saying. Got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Break it down, build back better. Today's agreement will make our international tax arrangement fairer and work better, said the OECD Secretary General Mathis. So he's pumped. He's going down, having some scotch. This is a major victory for effective and balanced multilateralism. It is a far-reaching agreement that will ensure our international tax system is fit for purpose in a decentralized and globalized world, specifically digitized. So we must now work swiftly and diligently to ensure the effective implementation of this major reform, he said. So he's all in. He's all in. So how are things going to work out going forward? They got 136 members who agreed to it out of the 140 to make it official. They're going to make it official in 2022. And of course, implementation is down the road from that. Won't be until 2023. So the convention is already under development and will be the vehicle for implementation of the newly agreed taxing rights under the Pillar 1, as well as for the standstill removal provisions in relation to all existing digital services taxes and other similar, relevant unilateral measures. So at least one key member has voiced a little skepticism and concern about the timing, with Switzerland saying it simply won't be able to implement this new rule by 2023, and they'd rather not do it. So, per the OECD, the second pillar of the deal includes many provisions. This one's a little convoluted. That entice dozens of emerging economies to sign onto the deal. Payments will take the form of taxes on big tech. Big tech, saying. Big tech routes the money through Ireland right now. One of them. So, assuming it's implemented, the deal will divide existing tax revenues in a way that favors countries while users and customers are based not where the company basically operates. So the measure was first proposed by the Biden administration with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. She is pumped. She's all in. She wants it bad. Was charged with, she spearheaded the deal through the OECD. Ultimately, the deal hopes to dissuade companies from reallocating to cheaper jurisdictions by creating a uniform system of taxes that would decentivize manufacturers to constantly be in search for, on the surface, cheaper labor. So the final deal is expected to be approved by the G20 leaders during the upcoming meeting in Rome. Right now, there's massive protesting going on in Rome at the end of the month, so hopefully it won't be destroyed. After this agreement, all of the signatures will need to, change their nation laws and amend international treaties to incorporate the changes to the International Tax Code into their own laws. So, higher taxes on the surface are expected to earn European countries more than $150 billion a year in revenues for the 136 member states who have agreed to the framework. The basic incentive for shifting profits has not been erased by the 15% floor on corporate tax, bottom line, from the reading. And that's what experts are saying. It has been shifted. It is still going to hurt the little guy, and big players will keep stuff in their pockets, some experts are saying. So we have already witnessed so much chaos and death over the past couple of years, ladies and gentlemen. Much more is on the way in the months ahead, in my opinion. Most people simply trust our leaders to do the right thing, but truth is the biggest criminals in our society can often be found walking the halls of power. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I just think you need to be a skeptic and question everything. Don't believe everything your government or your friend down the street tells you. Do your own research on everything. Whether you're going to purchase a house, whether you're going to buy a stock, just don't listen to what someone says. Get into the details and dig into it is all I'm saying. So I looked at both sides of this, and there's a lot of powerful economists that have some concerns about this. And I think here's the bottom line. Here's your key takeaway. The basic incentive for shifting profits has not been erased by the 15% floor in corporate tax income. The lion's share of revenue will go to the largest OECD members. Lower income countries still get the short end of the stick. So here it is. It allows foreign governments to take a bigger piece of the multinational tax pie generated by American companies. Right? So multinationals, Americans pay taxes for the government to help the United States of America, where the money should be going, the taxes to help the United States, boom, they get shifted to multinational corporations. More, American taxpayers, 155 million roughly, 52, and more money going offshore to multinational companies is what some of the people are saying in the research that I did. So just looking at both sides, but a new global 15% minimum tax, you should look into it, and I'd like to hear your opinion on it. Take care, be creative, be safe.